Bonjour tout le monde! So welcome back to my channel, and if you are new to the channel, my name is Yvette. I am a Singaporean that has moved to Switzerland last summer. Exactly 1 year ago today, I actually stepped foot into Switzerland's soil. Prior to moving here in Switzerland, I knew nothing about the country. Like, I didn't watch any videos or any information about the country because I really wanted to experience Switzerland in my own terms and how I perceive it instead of through other people's eyes. So I just came to Switzerland not knowing what to expect, and just wanted to experience life where it takes me. So yeah, it's been quite a journey. In today's video, I'll be talking all about the culture shocks that I've experienced as a Singaporean here living in Switzerland. I just have so much interesting story times to share with you, so without further ado, let's just get into it. So I think the very first culture shock that I experienced was everything is closed on Sundays. You know, back in like Singapore, everything is open 7 days a week. Everybody just, go out during the weekend to go to the malls, to go out, hang out with your friends. It's just something that really surprised me that, everything is closed on Sundays. And I have a funny story time about this. There's this particular event in town, and we were out on a Sunday. I mean, nature calls. We wanted to go to the toilet, but because everything is closed, including like malls and everything, we literally had like nowhere else to go because our house is like so far away. And we actually went to like the A&E of the hospital because it's definitely gonna be open, right, even on Sunday. So we actually went to the A&E of the hospital just to go to their toilet. It was like so freaking funny. Yeah, that's the very first culture shock that I experienced. By now it has been like pretty much ingrained in me, so I'm pretty used to it. But Sundays are really like Sunday fun day, family day for the Swiss. So yeah. And then the second culture shock that I have is, I'm not sure whether is it because I'm actually staying at the French part of Switzerland. I'm not sure if there's a difference in the German part. There's just this small talk culture where you simply cannot pass by someone without saying anything. Like, you feel obligated to actually say something, have a little small chat whenever you meet somebody. And this is something that up till now, 1 year later, I still cannot get used to, because back in Singapore, you could live with the same neighbor for like 10 over years and you still do not know their name, because we just don't have the culture to kind of, strike up a conversation. But here in Switzerland, you will find out all about like their life in the first 10 minutes of meeting them. For example, I met my neighbor for the first time. I baked apple tarts, right? And I actually went door knocking and introduced myself, and I said hi. My neighbor actually invited me into her house, and then we started chatting. She's currently a retiree. She used to be a childcare teacher. I know how many kids, grandkids she have, and what is she doing on this weekend, or what did she do today? Like, every time you pass by someone, you just, know like literally everything about them. And this is something that is actually really nice. You tend to have closer ties with your neighbors over here. It's just that, I'm a little bit introvert. So I find it really difficult to like come up with something to talk about every time I meet somebody. I would like to think that I'm getting better at it. And as I live in the French part of Switzerland, we kind of adopt like the French culture as well. So there's this thing called faire la bise, which means that when you meet someone, you kind of do like this 3 pecks on the cheeks. There's a very funny story time tied to this, because I don't know whether is it an Asian thing or is it a Singaporean thing, but we are just not exactly the most affectionate. So when I came to Switzerland, the very first time where I had to do faire la bise, it was so fucking funny. So I was living in student accom. It was summer, right? So actually the roommate went back to his hometown for holiday. I was not expecting the roommate to be back like the entire summer, right? So I was just casually, sitting on my couch in the living room, and then out of a sudden he appeared. After he said bonjour, like, he came closer to me and he bent down. I was so flustered when he suddenly came so close to me, because I thought he was going to kiss me. Like, I thought he was gonna like kiss me on the lips. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, we have to do faire la bise. He bent down to indicate that he wanted to do that, but I got so shocked, right, that I actually stood up. Like at the same time, I actually tried to stand up to do the beast, and then we just like collided into each other. It was like so fucking awkward. Like if like I was asked like, you know, when is my most embarrassing moment in life, I think it has to be that, because my god, it was so fucking funny and so fucking awkward. Like after that, like we just crashed into each other, right? You know what? Let's do this. Let's reset this. So both of us, I stood up, he straightened himself, and then we did it properly. But it was so awkward. I swear to God. I fucking swear to God. So that was my first time doing fair labis with the Swiss French, with the Swiss. It's men to men, they just like shake hands, but women to men, we do fair labis. And then women to women, fair labis as well. And to children, fair labis. Like in Swiss, they do it 3 times. But when I went back to France, Nantes, we only do it like 2 times, right and left. And I realized that it doesn't really matter like which side first, you know, right, left, or left, left. It doesn't really matter. As long as you are clear in which direction that you want to go first, then the other person would take the hint and go that direction. If not, you guys might end up kissing each other. So it was just a really funny story time of how I messed up my first fair labis. But subsequently now I'm actually getting used to it. But sometimes, say when you meet like a Swiss, like they don't know if you are comfortable with doing that, so sometimes they don't do it. And there are also like awkward times where like I try to go in for the fair labis, but they just hug me instead. And I'm like, okay. It's still a little bit confusing for me, but so the next culture shock is the culture of coffee over here. So when I was living with Uncle Denny and Aunt Vivian, so I actually bought this like you know, Singaporean 3-in-1 coffee. It's those kind of like instant coffee pack that we drink every day. And I was just like casually, you know, making my coffee, and Uncle Denny saw me and he was like, oh my god, you drink those? He gave the face like it's not good, you know, like it's something that he would never ever do with coffee. He said like, don't you think like the machine ones are better? Like, I think like literally every household has an espresso machine. Like it's literally something that the Swiss cannot live without. And so I actually crashed Adrian's school that time. Like sometimes I do go to his school for like lunch, and after lunch they wanted to have a cup of coffee. And I thought like, you know, they were gonna buy the coffee from like the cafeteria or something, but no, they were bringing us towards like their school lockers. And the moment they opened their school lockers, they actually have an espresso machine in their school lockers. It's like the coffee culture here is such a vital part of the Swiss life that they keep an espresso machine in their school lockers. They have the full set, you know, like there's an espresso machine, all the capsules, sugar, cream, everything in their school locker. And this is amazing. This is just simply amazing. And Adrian said that, you know, he believed that in the school lockers there has to be like at least 8 more Nespresso machines somewhere, because the Swiss just needs their cup of coffee after lunch. It's like the better quality coffee that they have. And I was like so deeply influenced that the very first thing that I bought for my new apartment here is actually an espresso coffee machine, and now I'm like hooked on it. Like every single day I need to have my cup of coffee. That was one of the most memorable culture shocks that I got. So more culture shocks about etiquettes, about the Swiss etiquettes here. This is for the boys, for the men. If you go to someone else's home, you have to sit down to pee. Yep, you heard that right. Like, it's just a polite thing to do. It's just something that the Swiss people are being taught growing up. But when I heard it, I was pretty shocked. So the next is about toasting etiquette. There's this toasting etiquette that is a must. When you're doing a toast to your friends, eye contact should be maintained with that person. And if like you have a group of friends, You have to do it with everybody while looking into their eyes, and you are actually doing this individually with every person on the table. And to add to the ritual, you shouldn't cross anybody's arms while doing the clinking of glasses while saying cheers or santé in French. And it might sound like very time consuming, but there's a kick to this, because if you do not do this clinking of the glasses and maintaining eye contact with your friend, you are gonna be cursed with 7 years of bad sex. And of course, you know, anyone who knows of this tradition would have their eyes like wide open, because nobody wants bad sex for 7 years, right? I mean, we don't know whether this is true or not, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Speaking about the neighbours etiquette, there's this one time where my neighbour actually knocked on my door. It was New Year's Eve, where I just moved into my current apartment. Later on tonight, I'll be actually inviting friends over to my house. We might make a little noise, so I just wanted to give you a little bit of heads up. Like, the Swiss are just so polite and so considerate of other people's feelings that they would actually preempt you that they are gonna have a party at home tonight, and they ask for understanding. I was so shook. This is something that will never ever happen in Singapore, but here is really very different. It's a pleasant kind of different, you know. And there's also very strict quiet times here. Every day from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. you are like not allowed to make noise. By that I actually mean like you cannot do things like singing karaoke at home, or you cannot like do your household chores with the vacuum cleaner, and on Sundays you can't like mow your lawn, and you just can't do things that are really loud that might disturb your neighbors. If you violate this rule, like your neighbors would complain on you, and they might even call the police on you. So this is something that is very new to me, but by now I have already internalized it, so yeah. So the next culture shock is the public transport system in Switzerland. You know, back in Singapore, when you board like a bus or you board MRT, there are always all these kind of like gantries in front of you, and you have to tap your card and then you open it and you can go in. This is to make sure like everybody pays for their ride. But over here in Switzerland, they do not have that. They basically fully trust their citizens to buy tickets whenever they're on board. This is something that was really shocking to me, because this is something that would have never worked out in Singapore. Like, the Singaporeans would just, you know, take full advantage of it and not buy tickets. But here, they trust that you buy your own ticket. You know, they don't really check whether you buy your tickets or not. I was like, what? So people could actually board the public transport without buying a ticket. Intercity trains, most likely there'll be a conductor going up and down the train to check that you actually bought your tickets. But for like trams and buses, there are rarely checks done, but they do conduct surprise checks here and there to make sure that you actually buy your ticket. And guess who got fined for not buying her ticket? So this brings me to another story time. It was back in December, when it was like winter, and I was learning how to ice skate for the first time, and the ice skating ring was just 2 stops away from my house. I just thought to myself like, I won't so suay one, I won't get caught, right? It's just only like what, 2 bus stops. But yep, I got caught not having a ticket. The conductor came on a bus and checked everybody, and no one was allowed to leave the bus until they're done checking. Okay, what could have costed me like $2 for that 2 bus stops actually went up to about $100 fine, which is about 150 Singapore dollars, and I've actually paid that traffic fine on the spot. If you actually waited for them to send the letter to your house, it's gonna be 40 francs more. So yeah, I got fined for the first time in Switzerland, and when I went home and tell Uncle Denny about it, he just laughed about it. He said like, it's just part and parcel, you know. Recently, the conductors have been doing quite a thorough check on the trams. And you know, these conductors just come in like big groups and they comb the entire tram, and you can just see people who like don't even bother to show the ticket. They just give their credit card because they don't have a ticket, you know? Now I'm actually an obedient citizen that always buys her ticket no matter how many stops I'm gonna take. So yep, I've learned my lesson the hard way. So I hope you learn from my lesson. But So the next culture shock is that recycling is a huge thing here. Like, it's a must, it is mandatory for you to do recycling, because if you don't follow like the strict rules of the recycling, you might actually get a fine. Like, there's even a proper way on how to do recycling here. So when you like throw out your trash, it is actually done separately. You would go to the nearest recycling corner of your home, and then you would just sort out your trash accordingly. You have to recycle the cartons, the plastic bottles, aluminium, glass. This is something new to me, because although back in Singapore they do promote, like, you know, recycling and all that, but there was never really any strict rules that you must do it or you have to do it. But here it is actually by law that you have to do it. Okay, so the next culture shock is administrative processing time is very slow. In Singapore, everything is like, you know, chop fast. You can get like your passport in like a few days, or the longest I've ever waited for my passport is like 1 month, and that's the max. So visa is the very first thing that I had to get it sorted out when I reached Switzerland. So after 1 month, I was like thinking, we already submitted all the documents, and why haven't we get any reply from the administrative office? So I went to ask Uncle Denny for advice. I'm like, it's been a month for my visa application, and then he's like, a month? The norm is like 3 to 4 months, so still early. I'm like, what? 3 to 4 months? And he's like, yeah, that's the norm. So processing time here can take a while, and it's something that you might want to factor in, because you want to arrange like your finances accordingly and give it at least like 4 to 6 months of buffer that you might not get your visa. The administrative processing time was extra long for me. I have no idea what went wrong, but during the first application when we submitted, we did not hear any news from them after 4 months, and when we went to inquire about it, they said that they didn't receive the documents. Like, did they lost our documents or what? I'm not too sure. So in October, we have to resubmit it again, and another 3 to 4 months wait. And it's a bit tricky, the administrative process for foreigners, because we needed to find like a Swiss guarantor, and that took some time. So that's the reason why I only got my visa after 1 year of arriving in Swiss soil. So honestly, it's the longest I've ever waited for any administrative processing. So all of the above is based on my experience living in Switzerland as a Singaporean for a year, and I hope you find my experiences funny, engaging, interesting, and maybe you can learn a thing or two from them. So thank you for watching. I hope you liked this video and found it helpful. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!